Joe Maxwell, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you, Kim. It's great to be on the show and appreciate your interest in this vital topic to us American farmers.
Well, I think it should be a vital topic for all people, considering we all eat food, right?
I think that's right.
Okay, let's talk about what the problem is. What are the challenges that farmers are facing right now?
Yeah. Well, I think it's important for everyone in the country to know, and you're exactly right. All of us are part of agriculture, right? Because we're eaters. Right now, the current agricultural policy system in the United States has failed. We're losing 60 family farmers a day. We have an agricultural trade deficit that's going to be a record of $47 billion. And we have a concentrated marketplace that farmers never know certainty on how much they're going to be paid for their crops when they plant the seed. We now are involved in tariffs and trade wars and government shutdowns, providing only more cost, less opportunity to market, and greater uncertainty as we head into this next growing season. And finally, it's failing all of us because we are not feeding our citizens. Big Ag, the largest corporations, keep saying, we feed the world, the United States. The agriculture powerhouse of the United States does not feed even ourselves. We're importing 60% of our fruits, a third of our vegetables. And the tariffs on those items, consumers are seeing that at the grocery store. Mm-hmm. We have a sick population. We're unhealthy. Our food system is driving the negative results of health. So it's a failed system. And those are the things that we're facing as farmers and as a public in the United States.
Okay, it seems just right off the bat really concerning that we're importing a lot of our food. That doesn't seem like it's great for national security. I mean, we saw what happened during COVID with shutdowns. What happens if the supply chains crash? I mean, what if there's a world war, which we're constantly seemingly on the brink of? What would happen to our supply? What would happen to our food supply in the event of the supply chain breaking down? What would you say?
Well, consumers would go to the grocery store and there wouldn't be anything on the shelves. We're in a serious national security and food security issue in this country, and no one on the Capitol Hill is talking about it. What they're talking about is additional bailouts. Know that the bailouts that the president's talking about now, based on the trade war, especially to soybean farmers, will be the third bailout in a year for these commodity crop growers. And it's all dependent upon exports. But when your largest buyer, China, of your soybeans says no, you don't have to wait for a war. When that largest buyer buys about half of the U.S. production, a little over, says, no, I'm not buying from you anymore, and goes to South America, you're left with bins full and bankrupt farmers. This is the third bailout. What happens in the time of another pandemic or war? Consumers go hungry because we're dependent on that, our food to be brought in from somewhere else. We don't feed ourselves. We import food, and we raise in America on our farms feed for livestock and crops for fuel, not food for people. It's a serious problem in America.
Right. That was going to be my next question. Why are the farmers farming soybeans, for example, that they're reliant on China purchasing and then why are we importing the rest of our food? Like, why aren't our farms growing food for Americans and we rely less on exports and less on imports?
The largest grain traders, the Cargills, the Dreyfus, the Bungys in the world, they control most of the terminals. They buy the grains around the world. They have helped drive, along with the bigger industrial food system, they've helped drive farm programs that encourage farmers and secure farmers' risk to raise the grains, corn, soybean, cotton, wheat, some peanuts, and rice. And that, when you hear about farmer bailouts, that's where the money's going. Only 4% of government subsidies goes to those farmers trying to raise healthy foods. And we're talking about billions and billions of dollars. Just this next bailout, they're talking at least 13 to $15 billion. None of that is being talked about to going to raise food to put on the shelves in U.S. markets in your grocery store.
So let me get this straight. So we've got a bunch of farmers who have, over time, transitioned or started farms that grow basically product that's only for exporting for other countries' needs. We don't need this. The other countries need it. And what Donald Trump is doing is basically bailing out farmers who the only customer that really needs them are foreigners, not Americans.
Well, the U.S. big meat packers needs cheap feed. So it's also about cheap feed. Right?
Okay.
So encouraging farmers and having farm programs that spend billions of taxpayers' money to encourage farmers to raise corn and soybeans to put into animal feed causes the farmer to overproduce those grains. They're selling those grains to these big grain traders for below their production cost. Now, what company in the world can survive? No one. So what happens? They go to Washington, D.C. and need bailout money to stay afloat. Who's the beneficiary of the bailout money? Other foreign countries.
Right. I mean,
that's the biggest meat packers in the U.S. and the world. Understand that these same meat packers, JBS is one of the largest beef packers in the United States. 4 companies control 85% of all the cattle market in the United States. JBS is usually the largest. It goes back and forth between Tyson and JBS, around 26% of the market. They are also the largest meat packer in the world. So when we talk about exports in other countries, these big corporations like JBS and Smithfield and others are taking benefit of that cheap feed all around the world.
Mm-hmm.
And in the end, the farmer, to survive, has to have the government programs. So it's a never-ending cycle, a loop, where the big ag folks come in, lobby Congress for more money for subsidies to grow corn, soybeans, wheat, the main commodity grains. They get that money. The farmers then move that way because of risk management tools and government programs, and then they produce more than the market will bear. The market goes down. Farmers need help. The big ag folks help lobby with the farmers, get more money to do the same thing. All the while, we're not feeding our own citizens.
Right.
And vegetable and fruit growers are getting 4% of the subsidies in this country.
Okay.
And it's a failed system.
Yeah, that sounds like a failed system. And it sounds like the beneficiary, like you say, are these foreign governments that are able to buy this cheaper feed because it's underpriced because the government is subsidizing it. So our government is subsidizing the ability for foreign countries to buy cheap feed, is what you're saying.
Our government,
now, of course, our farmers, like you said, our cattle farmers, and they're also getting the cheap feed. But we have to also recognize what would you say the percentages of that feed is sold for export versus kept for U.S. farmers?
I have that number. I don't recall it, but it's a significant amount on soybeans and corn. A significant amount of the production is for export value.
Would you say it's majority or half? Or I know you don't.
About half.
About half. Still, that's an outrageous amount.
Yes. Soybean. That's why we're in trouble. Right. With the evidence is China was buying about $12.6 billion value of soybeans. We have about 24 billion total export. It's about a $47 billion net for U.S. farmers. So about half on the soybeans, and China was buying half.
Okay.
Suddenly your largest customer quits buying, and your bins stay full, and no one's there to pick up the slack.
Yeah.
So our agricultural system, you have to understand, and this is what people say all the time, both in the news as well as on the Hill and just out in my community. We feed the world. The concept of that narrative is that means we do a lot of exporting, right? I mean, our whole philosophy has been feed the world. So our programs have driven this production for export. The unfortunate thing is it's abandoned domestic production of food, where we're relying. It's something like, let me look here. I want to just give you an idea of some of this food we're not raising. We're importing 68% of our tomatoes.
Jeez.
68% of the tomatoes now have some tariff on it somewhere. 89% of cucumbers.
Wow.
And 73% of bell peppers. I pulled those out of the stats to come on the show today because sometimes we talk in these big numbers and it doesn't really resonate. I mean, I do this every day, but I get lost in the numbers. But when you think about when you go in the store, almost 70% of those tomatoes there came from outside of this country.
My gosh.
I mean, if you love pasta, you're in trouble in this country, right? I mean, your plate is not going to be full.
Well, not only that, I mean, even importing it from another state is far away. I mean, we're a massive country. So even importing from just a few states away is like a pretty long haul. But I mean, to go all the way to a different country when we're already massive coast to coast, I mean, we're really bringing this food in from a really, really, which means, of course, it's pumped with, it's got to have genetics, modified genetics, or it's got to have some sort of preservatives.
Sometimes it's ripened with a gas in a container because it's picked green, so that it has shelf life. It's oftentimes less nutrient value in that fruit. There's a lot of things we can talk about that's negative to the health of the citizens.
Which I want to get into that, and we will. But I want to right now just focus on what the White House is doing and kind of the government issue on this. Going back to the exports, so Trump is in a trade war. Is this, he's saying to China, like, pay up. Is he trying to level this out? I mean, if we've been selling historically soybeans to China below market rate and then forcing our own government through lobbies to give the farmers the subsidies in order to sell China this cheaper than what it costs to produce grain, feed, is Trump in this trade war? Is he trying to say, no, we're not going to do that anymore. You need to start paying up. Is that what this is?
We're uncertain as to what the motivation and direction of the president is as it relates to tariffs and a trade war. He's early on, he seems to believe that broad tariffs are the answer, financial answer. They spent some of that money for social programs, that it's a way to fund government. Our belief is, and we've written about that on farmaction.us, that he's living in the past. He has a vision that America today is the America of the 50s or 60s when we had our own manufacturing. I mean, farmers are hit with tariffs, whether that's our equipment. A lot of our equipment's manufactured overseas, or the parts are. We're not unlike any other business getting hit with tariffs. We're a consumer. We believe he lives in the past where you could have tariffs because you could rely on your own domestic production.
Right. Yeah,
in the food area, I don't think he's even thought about this issue. I think that, the fact is we import a large part of our food. Right. And so when you put a tariff around the world, a broad tariff, consumers are going to pay more. He tends to want to ignore that fact, but we can't, we're suggesting we need to solve this problem. There's ways we can do that. We need to look to local and regional food systems, healthy foods. There's a way to invest $1 billion that makes sense for the public's health,
right,
or food security, national security. Right now, the White House is not listening to that.
Okay, so let's get into that. I mean, it's great if he's trying to correct this issue with us selling feed to, foreign countries at below market rates. I mean, that's good. Okay, fine, fix that. But that doesn't solve our bigger problem, which is the national security issue.
One of the things I would say is, if that is his motivation, he can't fix it that way.
Okay, how could
because those countries will just go to another country and buy it cheaper.
Yeah,
because it's a world market. Soybeans are fungible. In other words, my soybean on my farm in Missouri doesn't look any different than a soybean on a Brazilian farm or anywhere else in the world.
Right.
So if that is his motivation, that's will be failed. And that's what's happening today. I mean, China just went and purchased 80% of Brazil's soybeans and replaced the U.S. literally overnight. So I don't know, but I do want to say that it will not work. If that is his motivation, it will not work. What will work is when the United States government, the White House, and our Congress put an emphasis on healthy foods and raising those foods here in the United States and shifting acres away from commodity export production and put those acres back into raising food for our citizens and feed America again.
Okay, let's talk about that. What is the biggest challenge to changing things over towards feeding Americans? I mean, I can think of a couple of challenges, but we've got obviously there's a greed factor. I would imagine with these big farms that are just growing soybean and corn and feed, right? I mean, they're making so much money. They've been making so much money with government subsidies, so we should keep that in mind. Or are they not making money? Maybe they're struggling too, but it seems like you've said that there's been a motivation to transition away from food and into grain.
Right.
That seems to be one problem. Another problem seems to be people just aren't that interested in farming. And generationally, families, I mean, I come from a family of farmers from Weiser, Idaho. My father sold the farm. So it wasn't, we had the farm for generations, but my dad's dad my grandfather, he stopped farming, didn't want to farm, rented out the land. My dad didn't farm. When he was young, he taught some farming, but not. My grandfather was raised to farm. He started farming after World War II, didn't want to do the farm, moved his family to the city. And I think that's the story of a lot of farmers, where it was dad's farm or grandpa's farm, and they don't want to do the farming anymore, and they want to move to the city, and they want to live a different life. And then, of course, by the time it got to my dad and he inherited the farm, he was like, what am I going to do with the farm? I grew up on the farm, but I didn't learn to farm, so he sold the farm. So how do we address these issues?
Well, one, I think you're describing what is true in almost any business, right? A generational business. You could be selling, you could have the shoe store, but the kids decide they don't want to run a shoe store. A large part that what we understand and find in our organizations with our network is that lack of profit on medium-sized and small-scaled farms that were diversified farms raising food as well as feed for their own livestock, that profit margin is almost nil, and government programs don't support it. So who in their right mind wants to continue to do something and work that hard and face those blizzards and face that sunshine and that drought and not make any money? Nobody. So sometimes their choice is driven not because of greed, but just the bottom line.
Yeah.
We would also point that there is a long line of folks wanting to farm, wanting to get into agriculture, but they can't access the land. So they have a lack of access to land. So there will always be a transition in any type of business. We would point to the lack of profitability, the lack of focus on government programs, the lack of focus in the U.S. on smaller diversified farms raising foods, and mid-sized farms. They don't get the government money, and therefore they're not very profitable, and there's burnout and exhaustion from those farmers. We are losing over 60 farmers a day. So your family story is still going on today.
Yeah. What do you think the main motivation is for, running a farm is expensive. You don't make a lot, there's not money in farming. I mean, that's for the small farmers, maybe the big corporate farmers when they can go and get government subsidies or whatever. But for the average family farm, it's a very, it's not a lot of money, as you say. And you have to face Mother Nature,
Right.
And Mother Nature's not always friendly. So what do you think is the drive for, if we're losing 60 farms a day, 60 family farms a day, for one, it's not like the land disappeared. So what are they doing? When you say we're losing 60 farms a day, what do you mean? Are they selling to big corporations?
They're selling to larger farms. Our government programs, crop insurance, as well as these bailouts. There's a recent report that just came out showing that the bailout money actually puts the money in the largest farmers' hands. And so it gives them the ability to purchase land at a higher value than what others can afford. And then that also entices the farmer that's not making much money just to go ahead and sell out.
Yeah.
So our government programs drive the concentration of farmland into the hands of a few. So government programs have become forced dependency on exports and have also driven fewer farmers. The government has made conscious decisions that the big is better and that we will feed the world, even if it's on feed grains and fuel grains.
Thank you for watching this clip from the full Kim Iverson Show, which you can catch Monday through Friday, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern at KimIversonShow.com. It is free for you to watch. Again, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern, KimIversonShow.com. See you there.